We got several different news stories, guys, from across the globe. It's time for an episode of the World's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here, and welcome to an episode of the World's Newsround, where I cover some variety of different stories from around the world. And we start with this one here from thetimes.com with the headline that the UN chief calls for resumed funding of Palestinian aid agencies amid allegations of militant ties. So I covered a video already about this on Rumble, and I've covered in a short story a headline in it here on YouTube, but I've not actually done a actual video commenting on this whole story. And I think it's absolutely bloody disgusting what this is. So for a little bit of if you guys don't know the story, so the context is obviously that a day after the ICJ had the court ruling between South Africa and Israel, after a ruling was made on that, is that Israel needs to do more to look after the people of Palestine and to minimise the loss of life and casualties, and rightly so. And the case against them, whether they are causing genocide acts, is still up for debate, but the vast majority of footage and things that we have seen shows that it is likely to be genocide, allegedly. I have to state the word allegedly because it's not been factually proven by the ICJ, even though that we have seen reasonable evidence for it. The day after that happened, Israel came out and accused aid agencies of working for the UN of being part of the Hamas, basically. And this is so infuriating. It's just so infuriating because it just happens to happen the day after it. And I just feel like that this, and what's even worse about all this, guys, what's even more so effing infuriating about this is that the West, without being shown evidence, just immediately ceased their funding. France, the UK, US, all these countries, Australia, all these Western countries have paused their funding for the United for it, and it's just so effing stupid. Like, these workers, who put their lives on the line, then there may be one or two people working for Hamas. There may be. But the vast majority of them, who are in there to help people, to help them get food, to help them get care, to be there for them, to support them. Food, water, the basic necessity needs. They have a very important role. And this idea that all of a sudden the UN is bad, and I've seen one or two comments on the TikTok clip saying that too right, they need to be investigated. Based on what? Like, do we have a massive history here of the UN being bad? Do we have a massive history of this? Like, no. This is the whole cultural trying to turn people against it just because of what's going on with Israel. I mean, it's just absolutely atrocious what this whole thing is. It really, really is. The headline here is that the UN chief calls for resumed funding of Palestinian aid agencies amid allegations of militant ties. If there is militant ties, show us the evidence. The Secretary General of the United Nations on Sunday called on countries to resume funding from the aid agency providing aid to the Gaza Strip after dozens of its employees were accused of taking part in the Hamas attack on Israel that ignited the war 4 months ago. Again, where is the evidence? Show us the evidence. The dispute engulfing the UN Agency of Palestinian Refugees came as US officials said negotiations were closing in on a ceasefire agreement. The emerging deal would bring a 2-month halt to the deadliest ever Israel-Palestinian violence, which has stoked instability in the Middle East. The UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres warned that the agency known as the UNRWA would be forced to scale back aid to more than 2 million Palestinians in Gaza as soon as February. The coastal enclave is in the grip of severe humanitarian crisis, with a quarter of the population facing starvation as fighting and Israel restrictions hindered the delivery of humanitarian aid to the besieged territory. They are already dying, and you want to kill them faster. That's basically how it paints to me. The abhorrent alleged acts of these staff must have consequences, Gutierrez said in the statement. They've already been dismissed as well, by the way. They've already had their contracts terminated, those. But tens of thousands of men and women who work for the UNRWA, many in some of the most dangerous situations for humanitarian workers, should not be penalised. The dire needs of the desperate population they serve must be met, he added. He said that of the 12 employees accused of taking part in the attack, 9 were immediately terminated, 1 was confirmed dead and 2 others were still being identified. He said they would be held accountable through criminal prosecution. The UNRWA provides basic services from medical care to education for Palestinian families who fled or were driven out of what is now Israel during the 1948 war surrounding the country's creation. They now live in the built-up refugee camps in Gaza, the Israel-occupied West Bank, Jordan, Lebanon and Syria. The refugees and their descendants number about 6 million, and in Gaza they are the majority of the population. The UNRWA, which has some 13,000 staff members in Gaza, expanded its operation during the war and runs shelters that house hundreds of thousands of newly displaced people. More than 2 million of the territory's 2.3 million people depend on the agency's program for sheer survival, including food and shelter. The UNRWA Commissioner General Philip Zarasi said it's a lifeline that could collapse any time now, he said after the funding was suspended. Yeah, they are literally, the West are literally killing these Palestinians by suspending the funding. They are literally killing the innocent lives in this Gaza Strip. Literally killing them. The United States, which is the agency's largest donor, immediately cut funding over the weekend, followed by 8 other countries, including Britain, Germany and Italy. Together, the 9 countries provide nearly 60% of the UNRWA's budget in 2022. The Israel-Hamas war has killed more than 26,000 Palestinians, according to local health officials, destroyed vast swathes of Gaza and displaced nearly 85% of the country's territory. The October 7th Hamas attack in the southern Israel that sparked the war killed about 1,200 people, mostly civilians. Ammunitions took about 250 hostilities to Gaza. 2 senior Biden administration officials said that US negotiators were making progress on a potential agreement under which Israel would pause military operations against Hamas for 2 months in exchange for a release for more than 100 remaining hostages. That would be a laugh. Netanyahu has already said he has no intention of stopping. The officials who request autonomy to discuss the sensitive negotiations said that the emerging terms have yet to be sealed, would pay out over the phase, with the remaining women, elderly and wounded hostages to be released by Hamas in the first 30 days. The emerging deal also calls for Israel to allow more humanitarian aid into Gaza. More than 100 hostages, mainly women and children, were released in November in exchange for a week-long ceasefire and the release of 240 Palestinians imprisoned by Israel. CIA Director Bill Burns is expected to discuss the contours of the emerging agreement when he meets on Sunday, which has already passed. The head of Israel's Moscow's Qatari Minister Mohammed bin Hamad, an intelligence chief. This is a couple of days old, so some of that's going to be there's already probably happened. But my main gripe obviously was about the very fact that we are is that these conflicts the UN aid agency here who are just trying to do their jobs, just trying to protect, not trying to protect, but just trying to give aid to these people, the innocent people here. And all of a sudden, it just feels like they're shooting down their credibility, and they just want to. It comes across to me like, who gives an F about these Palestinians? Let's just let them all die. Like that's how it comes across to me. Because why would you suspend the funding for an organisation like this, who does amazing work, who make these people who work down there make tremendous sacrifices as well? That's the part for me I just don't understand, guys. I just don't understand. So this next one, guy, we are going to be talking a little bit more about the Israel-Palestine war. This is from Middle East Tonight. So Israel forces stress as medics raid hospital in Jenin, killing three. CCTV footage shows dozens of Israelis disguised as doctors, patients, and other Palestinian civilians storming the hospital. Now, I've watched the footage already, and I just think to myself, why did they need to disguise themselves? What was the reason behind this? I don't understand the premise of this. So, apologies for the text; it's really small. That was the best I could do, guys. So Israel commandos disguised as medics, patients and other Palestinian civilians raided a hospital in the occupied West Bank of Jenin on Tuesday morning in footage widely shared online. The soldiers killed 3 people inside Jenin and seeing the hospital. Footage shared online and in Israel media showing around a dozen Israel soldiers in the hospital armed with assault rifles. Hamas responded to the attack saying that Israel's crimes will not go unanswered and said that the killings were a continuation of the occupation's ongoing crimes against people from Gaza to Jenin. The 3 men have been identified as Mohammed Jamir and his 2 brothers Pascal and Mohammed al-Gashwiski. According to Israel media, the raid took around 10 minutes and took place at 5:30 a.m. One of the Israeli commandos was speaking Arab at the time of the raid, Israel Handam had reported. Meanwhile, the Israel military said one of the Palestinians was a Hamas member. The raid left parts of the hospital destroyed, with beds upturned and bloodstains covering the floor and equipment. Talik al-Shabiga, the medical director at the hospital, told Middle East Tonight that some of the Israeli commandos were also dressed as nurses and drew their weapons as soon as they entered the hospital. He added that some of the Israeli forces entered the Pascal Garidin room despite the fact that he was receiving treatment from wounds he sustained on October 25th following a missile explosion in a Jenin ceremony. No gunshots were heard during the storming of the wounded man's room. They immediately withdrew after a few minutes, and the hospital staff found the 3 young men covered in their blood, without any indication that they were alive, and the bullets were concentrated in the head, he said. Al-Shabigi said the assassinations mark new ways Israel is targeting hospitals and medical staff in Jenin. Not going to play the footage, but yeah, if you want to have a look at it, I'll put the link in the description if you want to see the clip of there's nothing hostility here, but you'll see them basically doing it. So there. The hospital director Nazim Naray told AFP that the attack took place in the hospital rehabilitation ward where Basel Gazgi had been undergoing treatment. They used weapons fitted with silencers, he told the news agency. An AFP photographer said he saw a bullet hole in a pillow covered with blood following the raid, the news agency reported. The Palestinian Ministry of Health denounced the attack, saying the healthcare facilities are granted special protection under international law. But they don't care about that. The Ministry of Health urgently calls on the United Nations General Assembly, international institutions, human rights organisations to end the daily string of crimes committed in the occupation Israel against our people and health centres, a ministry statement said. This is not the first time Israeli forces have raided and targeted the Inner Shinar hospital since the start of the war on Gaza on October the 7th. In November, Israeli forces and tanks surrounded the hospital. During a raid on the city, at least 4 people in the city were besieged, including in Sanbar Hospital. Israeli forces turned up at the hospital, one of the biggest in the occupied West Bank. They turned up in a raid where they asked medical staff to put their hands up and evacuate the hospital, an Al Jazeera correspondent had reported. At least 2 paramedics were arrested in the raid, while drone strikes killed 3 in the Jenin refugee camp. It's a hospital, guys. It's a freaking hospital. But Israel are claiming that that those working in the hospitals are working for Hamas. Again, where is the evidence to suggest this, guys? They're not painting themselves a very good picture. They've consistently not been. And I just this relentless defense of Israel is just shocking to say the least, guys. We're going to move on from it because if you want me to cover more of it, I will do more so on Rumble, guys. But we're going to move on from this. We're going to go into Europe, guys. This is an analysis by CNN about Viktor Orban. So the headline is how Orban ties to Putin's are putting European aid to Ukraine at risk. So there's absolutely no question, guys, that that aid coming to Ukraine. Now, obviously, things could change by the time we read this. Perhaps the EU might actually be able to get something through. I understand that there has been some mediation of talks between Hungary and Ukraine. What they are, I don't know. I have seen some of those one or two reports of that. I don't know how reliable the sources are, which is why I'm not putting them just for sake. But Orban's ties, and it's absolutely right, this headline, that because Hungary have ties to Putin and Russia, which is why they are stalling and making things difficult for the EU to get some kind of aid package to Ukraine, because right now things, the risks of Ukraine falling and collapsing the risk is very much there, simply because of Hungary, and the vast majority of the EU countries are trying to help them. But we also have this situation in America as well, where Republicans are very much against funding Ukraine and helping them now. A lot of Americans have been are having this perception now that obviously that they are sick and tired of money and funding going towards them as well. They've had that put into their minds as well. So it's not looking good whatsoever for them. So, from the start of Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, Hungary has been the weakest link in the West's response. Prime Minister Viktor Orban has held up Kiev's membership negotiations with the EU, slow-walked aid, cut deals, and cast doubt on Ukraine's capacity to defeat Russia. That's why so much attention on a meeting on Monday between the Foreign Minister of Hungary and Ukraine. Hungary and Ukraine. So there was a meeting between them. While both countries have been deliberately opaque about the purpose of the meeting in public statements, Western officials privately hope that it will provide some clarity on whether Hungary will drop its veto on the 50 billion European Union support package for Ukraine that was supposed to be signed off in December. Its Prime Minister Viktor Orban said at the same time the reason he blocked the funds was because it was wrong for the money in the EU budget to go outside the bloc. Well, believe it or not, that actually there are lots of money that goes outside the bloc. So what's the difference here? Oh well, you're funding my friend, you're funding Ukraine, which is my friend Mr. Putin would not like that. I'm just alleging, obviously. Critics of Orban have pointed out that his objections could have something to do with the fact that Brussels is holding out on giving Hungary money from the very same budget because it has breached the EU rules of law requirements, fundamental values enshrined in the bloc's treaties. Orban and members of his government have repeatedly denied that there is any connection between the two or that they have breached EU rules. But those same critics also noted that Orban has a uniquely close relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Many Western officials believe that Orban is leveraging that relationship in order to bully his European allies by playing the part of a Kremlin stooge. Act tough on support for Ukraine, a key priority for most of Europe in exchange for concessions in other areas. Yeah, this is one of the reasons as why. It's no secret that Hungary is increasingly an uncomfortable bedfellow for its partners in the EU and NATO. Over the past few years, Orban has come to blows with his European counterparts of all kinds of issues ranging from rights of LGBTQ+ citizens and migrants to undermining the jurisdiction. He has stretched the rules of the bloc to breaking point and engaged in brinkmanship with Brussels so many times, and quite often walked away with concessions or fudge deals where he got his own way. The crisis in Ukraine, however, has shone ever brighter light on the differences between Hungary and its Western allies. Hungary has frustrated European and US-led efforts to support Ukraine for the best part of 2 years. Orban has dragged its heels on UN-EU sanctions against Russia and supplies of weapons and financial aid to Ukraine, and played an obstructive role in Kiev's bid to join the EU. He not only opposed Kiev's similar bid to join NATO, but has been a major roadblock to Finland and Sweden in joining the alliances. It's hard to view his opposition to the Scandinavian countries joining NATO without considering the enlargement of the defensive alliance as a key grievance of Putin's. Orban finally dropped his objections, allowing Finland to join NATO last year, but he's now the final holdout on ratifying the Swedish bid, following the Turkish parliament's vote to approve it this week. Orban said shortly after the Turkish vote that Hungary in fact supported Sweden's NATO bid, thought that there is no firm timetable or when the similar ratification in Hungary's parliament. The unlocking of Europe's 50 billion aid to Ukraine is by far the most pressing issue ahead of the foreign ministry meeting on Monday, because EU leaders are set to meet again on February the 1st to have another go at passing the package. Western officials tell CNN that even a small indication behind the scenes of what it could take for Hungary to drop its veto would be a huge win. However, the majority of officials who spoke to CNN fear Hungary's latest obstructions are just a taste of what is to come, and are embraced for further Orban tantrums that will slow Western support for Ukraine down the line. There are some optimists, mostly diplomats, who say that while Orban is playing his domestic audience in public, he has ultimately supported all the previous EU and NATO measures, even if he did so through gritted teeth. A lot of public messaging has been bad, for sure, but weirdly behind the scene it hasn't been that bad, a European security official told CNN. The official added that Hungary has a much closer relationship with Russia than any other European country, and politically Orban needs to signal that he is not a NATO stooge to his audience at home and in Moscow. If an angry tweak is the price he pays to move forward, that's okay. But other officials are less generous. They believe that Orban is leveraging his relationship with Putin in order to hold the EU and NATO to ransom by disrupting a united front. It doesn't matter, they say, that Orban comes round to most things in the end, but he creates space for a perception that the West is not in total lockstep. It is true that there is a lot about the show with the Hungarians. They mostly give in at the end, but time and again they have blocked important action to support Ukraine and strengthen Western allies, a German foreign affairs official told CNN. whether it's about the EU funding for arms support for Ukraine, about NATO expansion in Scandinavia, or simply peddling Russia's disinformation about the war. They consistently disrupt Western unity. Western officials increasingly see themselves in an information war with the Kremlin. Information wars are something much more complicated than zero-sum games, something which can be spun as a crack in unity as seen as bad for the West's aggro. It's good for Putin. It might sound overlayingly simplistic, but this is how many officials and diplomats see things. Hungary is complex because of that simple truth. Orban knows exactly how valuable his support is to the West and how he can hold ally states over a barrel, even though Hungary is a beneficial with both the EU and NATO. He also knows that, more than anything, even the slightest hint of disagreement between himself and these institutions is valuable to Putin. For evidence of that, you need only look at Russian state media coverage of Orban's run-in with the Allies. For both these reasons, it makes political sense for Orban to sit tight in for as long as possible, as history has taught him this is the way to get concessions. None of this, of course, helps Ukraine. As the war drags on its third year next month, Ukrainians more than ever need clarity on whether support they will have from the West, especially in a US presidential election year. That aid from the EU and UK is going to be vital for Ukraine. Political psychodramas are a damaging distraction when you are under invasion, but that is what the vast majority of European officials think we are likely to see in the coming months. As the situation becomes more desperate and unstable, there will be more opportunities for Orban to create trouble and win greater political wars for himself. This man is an effing bastard. He really is. But you know, he sees an opportunity and he's taking it, guys. That's the grim reality. He sees an opportunity here for himself, and that's what he's doing. He's going to take these opportunities, and why shouldn't he take these opportunities, guys? That's the way that I see it. You know, I don't like it, but he sees it as an opportunity for himself, and he shouldn't miss out on these opportunities. You know, it's not right in any way, shape, or form, but this is the man he is. This is who he is. And I hate it. I hate that he's doing this. I hate that he's doing this, and I hate that he has ties to Putin and Russia, and I hate that he's holding the EU to ransom, because we have a fucking country that's at war on the edge of Europe, and the very nation is at stake here, and there needs to be assurances that this package has gotten through to them. I hope by the time this video comes out that it does, but this won't be the last we hear of it, guys. Guys, while you're here as well, if you can hit the like button, it'd be greatly appreciated. Shares across social media and hit the bell notification icon so you'll be notified when I upload another video. And subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. Sorry guys, I had to readjust one of my articles because it's not going to be in full view for you guys, but I will read it for you. So this one is from France 24. The headline is Pakistan's Imran Khan gets a 10-year jail term for revealing state secrets. Oh. The Pakistani court on Tuesday sentenced former Prime Minister Imran Khan and one of his party deputies for 10 years in prison after finding them guilty of revealing official secrets. So I've heard obviously that about here he's been in trouble already, and it doesn't look like he's going to be back anytime soon. 10 years is a long time, and yeah, what were those secrets, guys? Let's read into it, shall we? So according to Zinwar Bakri, a spokesperson for Khan's Pakistani Tehran-Iski party, the court announced the verdict at a prison in the garrison city of Rakapini. If I mispronounce any names, I do apologise, but I'm just going to put that out there. Khan, who was ousted through no confidence vote in Parliament in April 2022, is currently serving a 3-year prison sentence in a graft case. The latest development comes ahead of a February the 8th parliamentary elections in Pakistan. A vote that Khan is barred from running because of his previous criminal convictions. Authorities say Khan and his deputy, who also receives a 10-year sentence, Jenin Kreski, has the right to appeal Tuesday's ruling in the case popularly known as the Cyphers case. Although Khan will not be on the ballot for the February election, he remains a potent political force because of his grassroots following the anti-establishment rhetoric. He says the legal case against him were a plot to sideline him ahead of the vote. Pakistan has seen violent demonstrations since after Khan's May 2023 arrest. Authorities have cracked down on these supporters and parties since then. Pakistan's Independent Human Rights Commission has said there is little chance of a free and fair parliamentary election next month because of the pre-poll rigging. It also expressed concerns about authorities rejecting candidates of Khan and senior figures from his party. The Cypher's case is one of more of 150 cases pending against Khan, a former cricket star turned Islamic politician. Other charges range from contempt of court to terrorism and inciting violence. Khan is alleged to have waived a confidential, I'm losing my words today, document during a rally after he was toppled as premier, claiming that he was proof that he was being threatened and that his ousting was a US conspiracy. Allegedly executed by the military and the government in Pakistan, Washington and Pakistani officials have denied the claim. The document he waived, dubbed Cypher, has not been made public by either the government or Khan's lawyers, but apparently diplomatic correspondence between the Pakistani ambassador to Washington and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Islamabad. This election in Pakistan is a dead squid anyway. If I'm honest, because I'm pretty sure we discussed Pakistan in the election video that I had at the start of the year. If you typed general election, if I remember to put it in the description of the video, I can do on the other elections that were taking place this year, because there's lots of elections taking place this year. Yeah, I mean, Pakistan is just not going in the right direction as a country. Getting 10-year jail term. I mean, it's just not a good time for the country as a whole. For Imran Khan himself, I mean, I don't know enough about him to say whether he's in the right or the wrong. But what I will say is that things are not looking good right now for the country in any way, shape, or form. And I do fear for the future of Pakistan and its people, because it's, last year I remember they were kicking out all the Afghans out of the country as well. They're not going down a very good path right now, that's for sure, guys. So we're going to be looking at the war in Ukraine in this next article, guys. This is from the Kiev Independent. The headline is Russia attack kills 6, injures 9 over the past day. So there's still, obviously, there's still conflicts and skirmishes taking place still within the war. Obviously, I normally cover these in short videos every now and then. So to give people an update on what's going on as well. And we'll look at one or two other feeds in a moment as well. So Russia has carried out attacks against 11 of Ukraine's own blasts over the past day, killing at least 6 people and injuring at least 9. Regional authorities reported on the 30th of January. In Sunday own blast, Russia attacks killed 3 people and injured 1 in the Novonoskafai community and killed 1 more person in the Yakovich community, the regional military administration had said. Another report published soon after said that a Russian attack in Moscow's Yakovich community killed a 36-year-old man, but did not specify whether he was included in the previously listed number of victims. In Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, Russia attacks injured 2 men aged 19 and 21 in Nikopol, Governor Sergei Luskat had reported. Russia attack against Dnipropetrovsk in Donetsk Oblast killed 1 person and injured another, the regional military administration has said. 1 more person reported suffered injuries in Akavita. In Kharkov Oblast, Russian troops targeted the city of Zimlik, wounding 2 men aged 52 and 61. The governor Oleg had said the first of the victims was hospitalized, while the second received medical attention on the spot. Russian forces launched 67 attacks in Kursk Oblast, killing 1 person and injuring another, according to the governor Oskar Progin. In Mykolaiv Oblast, debris from a destroyed Russian drone hit a truck, injured a driver, and started a fire that was promptly extinguished, the governor Vladimir Kim had reported. The driver suffered a brain injury but is in stable condition, Kim had noted. Ukrainian Air Force said Russia launched 35 Shalad-type kamikaze drones against Ukraine overnight. Some 15 of them were reported shot down by Mykolaiv, Sumy, Kursk, Kolovar, Dnipropetrovsk, Kala, Kursk and Kiev Oblast. So these are the regions, obviously, and cities that they were over. Kherkovich, Lunsk and Zaporizhzhia Oblast came under attack, but local officials reported no casualties as well. Some of the other headlines here, I'm just going to read them on the left-hand side for you guys. So, from Bloomberg, Russian government forms its own mercenary group with Africa. That's a report from Bloomberg that the Kiev Independent has here. The Russian drone strike on Kherson Oblast basically injures a man. Key corruption index sees Ukraine improve. Russia worsened in 2023. Belgium, Ukraine signed memorandum to strengthen joint weapons production here as well. And the military, Ukraine downs a Russian Su-34 jet over Lusk on blast. Some other ones, Latvian member of European Parliament accuses of spying officially under investigation there. Russia, Belarus to create a joint state media outlet has also been reported as well by the Kiev Independent, guys. So obviously these reports I will continue to update as much as I possibly can. I normally do one short a day at least with regards to anything regarding Ukraine, Russia war, but obviously guys, you can always check it directly at the KievIndependent.com if you want to have a look for yourself as well. So guys, I got one more article for you guys before I finish things. I wasn't going to do, looks like I'm not going to be doing a full hour. I guess I wasn't planning to do a full hour anyway, just because of time constraints on things that I'm doing. But this one is away from Europe, away from Middle East, and this one is in Hong Kong from Al Jazeera. So the headline is that Hong Kong is beginning legislation to push to pass new national security laws. The new offensive cover under proposed laws will include treason, insurrection, and espionage. So as we know, guys, Hong Kong is starting to go towards less democratic and more totalitarianism, and more towards China. It just feels like as time passes on, more and more it becomes less democratic, less democracy, and the country that people have once knew is slowly gonna fade away. It really is. Ever since Britain gave it up, I do sympathise deeply with people in Hong Kong, and I just feel that there's no way for them out of this. There really isn't. And it's really sad to see the direction that they are going. I will say is obviously I'm glad that there is a way for them out to come to the UK legally if they do want to come here, because there is a legal route for them to come to the UK if they want to, and I'm hoping that there are other methods for them. But yeah, Hong Kong, what you once knew of it will not be the same. When about in the next 10, 20, 30 years, it is slowly transforming from a democracy. No more. So Hong Kong's government has started work on a new national security laws, intending to pass the package soon, 4 years after China imposed sweeping legislation in the wake of the massive pro-democracy protests. John Lee, chief executive of the semi-autonomous city, said on Tuesday that while Hong Kong as a whole looks very calm and very safe, still had the potential to look out for potential sabotage and undercurrents to try and create trouble, particularly in some of the independent Hong Kong ideas that are still embedded in some people's minds. This is the thing, they want to shut this down, because there is this perception as well, is that some people are thinking of why not Hong Kong going independent completely rather than being under someone's banner or thumb. But there's no way that's going to happen. Not with China. China will step in if Hong Kong loses. If Hong Kong's government loses control, China will step in. Excuse me, they will step in if anything of the sorts. We can't afford to wait. It's for 26 years we've been waiting. We shouldn't wait any longer, Lee said at a news conference, describing it as the city's constitutional responsibility dating back to the 1997 handover to China from Britain's colonial rule. Officials announced a public consultation period for the new law, which begins on Tuesday and then ends on February the 28th. The new security law, mandated by Article 23 of the city's constitution, will cover 5 additional offences: treason, insurrection, espionage and destructive activities, endangering national security and external interference. Title control of foreign political organisations linked to the city is also advocated. The mini constitution, the basic law, calls for the city to enact a national security law, but it's been delayed for decades because of widespread public opposition based on fears it would erode civil liberties. In 2003, an attempt to pass a version of the law sparked street protests and drew 500,000 people, and the legislation was shelved. They can only delay this for so long. The people, like I've said, democracy is not gonna last, guys. It's not in Hong Kong. No one's going to help them. In 2019, large pro-democracy protests rocked the city, bringing hundreds of thousands of people to the street and calling for greater freedoms. In response, Beijing imposed a national security law to punish 4 major crimes, Succession, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign forces, with sentences wrangling up to life in prison. More than 30 people have been convicted under the law, while dozens have been held in pre-trial detention for more than 2 years. 110-page constitution document to be submitted to the Legislative Council cites similar laws in Britain, the US, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and Singapore. The document states that Hong Kong is under increasing threat from foreign espionage and intelligence operations, and cited the months of pro-democracy protests in 2019. Lee said he anticipated bad-mouthing of the new laws, but insisted it would soon dissipate. When people see this law, they will bring security and stability. They will love it, he said. Freedoms would be safeguarded and the laws would meet international standards, he said. I must stress that the Basic Law Article 23 legislation must be done as soon as possible, he added. Al Jazeera's Patrick Fox reports from Hong Kong said it seems very unlikely that there would be similar protests similar to those in 2019 in opposition as new proposed laws. Pro-democracy lawmakers in particular are now out of government. Many of them have been exiled and arrested. This is a very different political climate that we're talking about now here in 2024, he said. Like I've said, what they've done is just get rid of those who have some authority in those powers or laws or whatever and believe in democracy. They will get pushed out of the way or exiled, any way to push them out so that they can instigate these sweeping changes. A previous government attempt to pass Article 33 law was shelved after an estimated 500,000 people staged a peaceful protest in 2003, forcing the resignation of the security minister then. Like I've said, guys, it's not going to stop Hong Kong from doing these acts, and China will be on top of them. They will be on top of them, and it's not going to go away. I will say, if anybody from Hong Kong happens to be listening to this, I really do sympathise with you guys. Good. Like, they're trying to last as long as they possibly can, but the changes are coming, whether they like it or not. And I don't see, it's not like anybody's going to come to their aid, because nobody will. Nobody's going to challenge China on this. No one's going to challenge China on this. It's coming, and I really do sympathise with them. So, guys, I've come to the end of the World's News Round, up to 37 roughly minutes, guys. What did you make of some of the articles that we talked about today? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section down below. Did you find them informative, insightful? Share some of your thoughts about some of them in the comment section. We're eager to hear them. If you found this video helpful and informative, please hit the like button and share this across social media so other people are aware of this video. And subscribe, because it really does help support the channel if you can. And hit the bell notification icon, so when you do, you'll be notified of whenever I premiere a video, whenever I upload a video, whenever I go live as well. Also, if you want to financially support me, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for just as little as 99p, or even joining me on Patreon for exclusive content on there as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys, if you've watched all the way, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.